we will get started. Welcome to your weekend painting workshop with Smudge. My name is Paige, for those of you who don't know me, and I am the owner of Smudge Art Studio. Smudge has changed drastically in the last couple of months. We closed the studio at the end of January and have since gone mobile, but the mobile part kind of ended quickly in March. So we are now doing online workshops, which has been super fun and a great way for you guys to get creative on the weekends. So thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to paint our Tulips masterpiece. This masterpiece was originally painted by Taylor, who is not with us today. I do miss seeing all of you, so hopefully life will get back to normal soon and we can paint in person again. So my painting will not turn out exactly the same as Taylor's, and your painting should not turn out exactly the same way as mine. However, I'm going to go through the techniques with you so that you can create your own Tulips masterpiece. In the chat of this Skype call, I've also sent a photo of the original masterpiece, so if you do want to take a look at that, you can. Throughout the workshop, this should take us an hour, maybe just over an hour, but it shouldn't take us too long as this is a really nice, messy painting. There's not a lot of detail or precision to it, which I love. For those of you who know me, I like to get messy. So it should just take us just a little bit over an hour. What I'd like for you guys to do for the next hour is just relax. Don't even think, just follow along with me and just have a really good time. Okay, so our thinking brain is thrown out. It left about 5 minutes ago, and I just want you to sit back and relax. So for this workshop, you will need at least 2 sizes of brushes. You will definitely need a big brush because this is a big canvas. Again, your brushes should always match the size of your canvas. So I am using a 1-inch brush. And then you also have a medium brush. I use a 1/2-inch brush, and that's all I'm going to use. The majority of the time, because you can see the spaces are so large, it will be the 1-inch brush that we'll be using. You will also want to have a jar of water. So the water, it can be warm if you want it to be. However, you will always want to have paper towel available as well, because you will want to wipe, rinse, and wipe your brush every time you stick your brush in the jar and every time you take it out. So I have some paper towel here. So the only time that you have to rinse your brush is when paint is building up, or when you want to switch a color, or when we're mixing colors and we don't want the color that's on the brush to mix with our new color, because there are some times in here, like if we're going from a blue background to a purple flower, we may not even have to rinse our brush because we need blue and red to make purple, right? So that's really the only time you need to rinse your brush. A lot of the time people will over rinse your brush, and that can actually damage your bristles. So just keep that in mind. So before you rinse, you're going to gently wipe the paint off on your paper towel. You're going to stick your brush into your jar and gently rub those bristles on the bottom. You're going to give it a little bit of a shake, and then you're going to wipe, dab, or gently squeeze the water out. You don't want to have painty water, and you don't want to have watery paint. All right, the next thing that you will need is some sort of palette. So I'm just using a paper plate that I have here, and your colors. So I haven't even laid out my colors today. I am going to kind of mix along with you. However, whenever we paint, we always start at the back and we work our way forward. So the very first part that we are going to start with is the background. I am going to use white and umber. That's that brown color that if you ordered your supplies through Smudge. I'm going to do that because I'm actually going to change this up a little bit. Yeah, you know me. And I'm going to try and do boards behind here, kind of like a rustic look, sort of. So if you want to follow along with me and do that, great. If you want to do what Taylor did, she really just did a swipey background, and it'll be the same sort of technique. But artists, it's your masterpiece, so you decide. So if you want to follow along, we are going to take our big brush, and we are going to take some of our white. Now I always start with white with a clean brush because you never want to contaminate your white. You always want it to be nice and clean. And I'm literally just gonna take a pile of the white and wipe it onto my palette just so that it's there. Okay, so, and I still have a lot of white left. I never know how much paint to give you guys, but I do know that when we're at our public workshops, there's a lot of paint that gets thrown out. So, and for those of you who have created with me, you know that I generally give too much paint. So the next thing I'm going to do, and actually if you want, because your umber isn't really going to be mixed with anything else unless you're gonna have brown flowers, you can literally just paint right out of your pod, I guess, if you want to. Okay, so I haven't even rinsed my brush yet. I still have white on my brush. We're gonna take our big brush. I'm gonna dip it in some white on one corner, and I'm going to dip some umber in another corner. And using vertical strokes, so we're gonna go up and down, we are just going to fill in this background. Now, if you've painted, again, with me before, I like to have that messy background. I like to see those streaks. I feel like it gives some interest to the masterpiece. However, if you do want these colors to blend in a little bit more, you are actually going to keep going over top of it, and the paint will mix right on your canvas. So if you just wanted this one sort of brown umber color or whatever color you're using, you will just seriously just keep going over top. When you get to your tulips, can you guys please be very careful and just go over top of the line? So the way that you can do that actually is, if you want, turn your brush on its side and just go very slowly, and it will create a thin line. The harder that you press with your bristles, the wider your bristles will spread, and so you're going to get a wider mark. However, if you just want a nice thin line, you're just going to press hardly at all, okay? Now when you get to this part here, maybe you want to land your brush just on the line where your tulip is and pull up. And then that way you are not painting over top of your lines. However, you do want to go over top just a little bit, unless you're going to go outside of your lines for your tulips. So artists, I am dipping often because this is a big area. However, I am spreading my paint out so that I don't have big goops and globs. So again, turn my brush on its side to just get that buffer. And you want to fill in these little cracks here, and yes, I am going over top of my lines slightly, because well, you go over top so that you can fill in space, but I'm doing this technique so that I kind of want to create some sort of rustic board look, because we're not painting on boards right now, but I do like the idea of having like washed boards behind it, behind my flowers. Now artists, if your brush starts to feel scratchy or picks up paint when you're painting over something else, you need to have more paint on your brush. You should always have enough paint that your brush is gliding. So again, I've got to this tulip here, so I'm going to turn my brush on its side and just kind of take that line down a little bit. Down here, I'm going to land my brush right in the middle and pull it up as far as I can without disturbing my tulip too much, okay? So I am using a big brush to get in these little tiny areas. However, I do want to go over top of my lines just a little tiny bit. So artists, whenever I dip, I'll show you. So I still have my umber here. And sorry, just so you know, I'm teaching to another camera. I still have my umber in the pod, but whenever I dip on my palette, I always start from the side and work my way over. That way, when I dip, if I dip in the middle, then I kind of contaminate my whole white, which can be really frustrating. And just so you know, for those of you who joined a little late, I have a cat who she's being bad today. She wants to go outside so bad, and I'm sure we all do. It looks like it's going to be a lovely May long weekend. but she just learned how to escape, and you know, she likes rolling in the dirt. And please don't think that we keep our cats locked up. We don't, but actually, this might sound silly, I take my cat for a walk on a leash. She's funny. Anyway, they're my fur babies, so what can I say? So you might hear her crying in the background. So again, artists, if you do have any questions, please ask me. I will rarely have my head turned to the screen, so you will need to unmute your mic and just please ask me if you have any questions. Oops. So I also should tell you that acrylic paint will dry darker than when you lay it down. So if it is too dark for you now, it'll be way too dark for you later. And if it's too light for you now, don't worry, it will darken up a little bit. Sorry, so I'm gonna go in, artists, and just do some touch-ups. I like to have some streaks. And I also wanna show you some other parts that you may miss, because this background, so this is a leaf down here. This is a stem here. Right here is a leaf, but this in here is part of our background. So you may want to take your brush on its side and just do vertical strokes there. This in here is our background, this little tiny triangle. So before we go on, artists, I do want you to check to make sure that you have gotten all of your background filled in. And of course, we have this bottom right corner down here. This here is a leaf. So you may want to outline on the side a little bit and then take your vertical strokes, again going over top of your lines just a little bit. But we're not coming back to really redo this background. I think what I will do is do the lines for the boards afterwards, just give it a little bit of time to dry. But really, we are not giving this a second coat. See what I mean about going over top of it a lot and it just turns to one brown? That's kind of what happened in my bottom right corner here. Artists, if you can't see that, or if I need to move whatever, please let me know. On my end it looks good, but that doesn't mean that it's good on your end. Okay, so we've got a leaf here, a stem here, a leaf here, a stem here, and a leaf here. Okay, so artists, just go back and do any sort of touch-ups. You should be at least half done your background, if not more. Do try to follow along with me. If you do get far behind, don't worry. It's a really easy masterpiece. Just pay attention to the instructions, I guess, or the next steps. So I'm just gonna add ooh, that's too much. Add a few more streaks in here, and then I'm gonna be good with that. So artists, I don't know if you've noticed, but to take a really good look at your masterpiece, you kind of want to view it from a distance. Anything up close, even the masters, look like just a big jumble of colors. So you always want to stand back to take a look at your masterpiece and determine from there what you need to do. And before you go on, artists, please make sure that you get in between this little part here of your flower and your leaf. And yes, I actually went over top of my lines quite a bit there. This bottom right corner, in between this flower and their middle flower, and then in this little corner, little triangle part right there. Other than that, that should be our entire background. The other thing you can do, if you want, is paint the sides of your background while you've got the color on your canvas, or on your brush, I should say. Because you are doing the same technique on the front, you can go up and down if you want to. The only thing with doing that is it can split your brush, and it's kind of annoying to paint with a split brush after, because you kind of have to go and condition it to get it really put back together well. So again, artists, because you are at home and not at a studio, this is a really important step. You do not want acrylic paint going down your drains. So you do want to wipe it off as much as you can. Stick your brush into the jar, my little sticky thing. Gently rub your bristles on the bottom. I have one of those paint pucks that we have at Smudge, so I'm just going to gently rub that. And a lot of people have asked for those. You can probably find them on Amazon. I found them through a supplier in the States, and honestly, I just have not bought any since I originally got them. But if I do, I will order more and let you guys know. So just so you know, our next step is going to be to go on to the leaves and then the stems. So there's a leaf, leaf, and a leaf, and then stems. Then I'm going to come back and do my board lines, and then we're going to start with the back petals, which is fun. Okay, just so you know what the next steps coming up are, we are going to stick with our big brush for the leaves. You may even want to move to your stems, maybe, depending. So artists, if you are done, you could start making your green if you want to. Green is just yellow and blue mixed together. And because we are going to mix, we're going to do this on our palette and not in our pots. All right, artists, so our next step is to mix some green. So you're going to take your blue and you're going to take your yellow. So for those of you who bought paint through Smudge, you'll notice that you got more yellow than blue. You actually did. I know it doesn't look like it, but there are more pumps. So because yellow is actually our second biggest seller, it goes fastest after white. So white is our very first, and then yellow, because it's so versatile and you can make so many colors with it. What I do want you to remember, however, is if you are doing yellow tulips, you will want to have enough yellow left for your tulips. So your green is going to be a bit darker using more blue. However, I am going to take probably a good scoop. Now, I'm not a baker at all. My cinnamon buns are my the cheat ones. Have you ever done that where you take the dinner rolls and you just do a pull apart sort of thing? So good. Anyway, so I'm going to take a good portion of my yellow and just kind of scrape it off here. And then I'm going to wipe my brush off. I really don't need to rinse it as long as there's no wet yellow, like any wet stuff. I am okay to dip right into my blue. And so I'm going to grab a good portion of blue. And I'm going to put it right beside my yellow. Sorry. Okay, so I've got yellow and blue there. And what you can do, and you could even just mix them together, like put them right on top of each other. So I'm going to take my umber pot off here. So I like to mix right here. I just pull and dab. And now if you have a painting knife, that's actually the best way to mix your colors, because then you can scoop it right off and scrape it right off and it doesn't all get built up in your bristles. However, if you don't, like me, you are just going to make your green right here. Now, if you want it lighter or brighter, you're going to add more yellow. If you want it darker or more turquoise, you're going to add more blue. You are going to want to make a different green for your leaves and your stems. However, we are starting with the leaves right now. So, I don't know. Guess I'll go brighter, I guess. All right. So I've got green on my brush. I haven't built too much paint up in my bristles, so I'm okay to not rinse. And the first thing that we're always going to do is we're going to outline first. So I am still using my big brush and I'm going to maneuver it in a way that it will fit here. And you're outlining first, oops, and then filling in. Because we're painting at the very bottom of our canvas here, you're going to want to pull from the bottom up. Now, If you don't like it all one tint or shade, maybe you could even double dip and get some yellow on there or some white. However, I'm probably going to come back and do a super quick second coat on my green. So that's one leaf. This here is another leaf. Whoops. And again, because we're at the bottom here, we're going to pull from the bottom up. So outline first and then fill in. If you go over top, it's okay, but try not to do it a lot. But you should be painting over top of your background lines for sure, those little ones that came over top. So we're going to outline first and then fill in. Oh, that was the perfect amount of paint. I have just a little bit left, so that's good. Artists, let the brush do the work for you. Stop thinking, just do. Okay, so I'm going to come back and do a second coat on those later. In the meantime, I also need to do my stem. So in a couple of minutes here, not even, I'm just going to move on to the stem. So artists, you should be working on your one type of green for your leaves. And then for the stem, I think I'm going to go a little bit darker. So I'm just going to drag some blue in here, in that green that I already made. And the blue will make it darker. And we actually have less stem than we have leaves. Now artists, if your paint does start to build up in your bristles, you can scrape that beautiful paint out right on the side of your palette. Oh, I should warn you, be careful that you don't get this on furniture, clothes, anything like that. It will stain. It comes off of hard surfaces like countertops. You need a bit of a scrubby. Floors, hard floors, it'll come off, but anything cloth or actually even wood, it will stain, so just be very careful, okay? So artists, when you're ready to move on to your stems, you're just going to make a different green. And honestly, I just moved more blue into the green that I already made. That's it. So I just dab, 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 right? Get some green onto my brush. And again, I'm going to outline first. Turn my brush on its side for that really nice thin line. And then I'm going to fill in. So artists, let the brush do the work for you. You should never be trying to squish it somewhere. You can't turn your brushes so that they will fit. So I wanted to make a different green so that my stem stood out a little bit. Now for this really thin one, I am still using my big brush. You can move on to your medium brush if you want to. And I'm going to turn my brush on its side. Now again, remembering that the harder that you press with your bristles, the wider your bristles will spread. Sorry, the harder that you press with your brush, the wider your bristles will spread. So you can use a really thin line if you're not pressing hard and if your bristles are all in one, all grouped together. So again, artists, I am going to come back and do a second coat on that. Okay, so you can see I've got leaves, they're my lighter green, and my stems are my darker green. Maybe I should have gone the other way, I don't know. However, I am done with my green for now. I'm going to wipe, rinse, and wipe my brush. So again, artists, do try and get your brushes really clean in between. And we're wiping, rinsing, and wiping our brush, getting that water out. I'm going to go on to the back boards here. All I'm going to do, so I'm like, do I use my smaller brush? Okay, I'm going to use my smaller brush for this. Okay, so my smaller brush is my 1/2 inch brush, and I am going to wet it and group my bristles together really well. And I'm just going to dip straight into my brown. And because my background should be dry now, right? We've already spent time working on it. I'm just going to use my pinky finger to steady, and you kind of have to do this straight on, right, to get that nice straight line. Straight-ish line, I should say. And that's it, just a couple of lines there. Might want to thicken them up a little bit. Could also do some knots. So I've just taken my brush and spun it. Right? That's a little too much. It looks like a full-on spiral. Yeah, make it a little oblongish. Alright, so all I did, artists, to add some knots, and they're really messy, like they're not even, it's kind of a, I spun it first, but now looking at those, it's too round. There we go. There, that's better. So just lightly sketch around those. Okay, too much, right? All right. So wipe, rinse, and wipe your brush, and we are actually going to move on to the back parts of our petals. So this is where you will want to decide what color your flowers are going to be. Mine, I think I'm just going to stick with my red. I know that might sound a little boring, but I think that's what I want to do. So if you want purple, you're going to mix red and blue together. Again, do the same technique that we did with the green. However, this is a large area, right? So you're going to want a large amount of paint. I guess what I can say is if you're not going to go back and do a second coat on your leaves and your stems, you can just literally mix right into your blue if you wanted to, or vice versa. You can mix right into your red if you're not going to use your red for anything else, right? So you could do that right in the pot. The only reason you would not mix right in the pot is if you needed some of that paint. So again, if you want purple, you could mix right into your red pot, maybe, because we're not going to go back and use red. The yellow and the blue might be a little bit more difficult. If you want an orange, you could go and mix again some yellow right into your red as well. So those could be options for sure. Now that I said orange, right? Y'all know me, I love orange. Nah, I'm gonna stick with what I started with. So, artists, I'm not even going to do anything different here other than I'm going to take my big brush, I'm going to dip directly into my red, and I'm literally going to outline the back petal. So if you want to wait to see which petals I fill in first, so outline it first, and if you want to use your smaller brush for this, you can. I just like my big one because I think it provides nice coverage. But if you want to use your medium brush, you can do that as well. So we're just going to fill that in, that's all. So artists, just so you know, this is going to be our first step. We're going to fill in the back petals of our tulips. Then we're actually going to go back and do our second coats on our stems, come back and do second coats on our back tulips, and then we're going to fill our tulips in. 11:30. Okay, this will take just a little bit over an hour. So back here, again, you're going to outline and then you're going to fill in. It's okay if you go over top of those petals in the front a little bit, because we are going to bring that beautiful, messy front part of our stem color up. So these back petals are actually the insides of your tulips. So outline first and then fill in. Okay, and one more here, outline first and then fill in. If you want pink, of course, you're going to mix red and white. If you want to lighten your colors at all, maybe wanted a turquoise, artists, please do ask me if you have any questions about color mixing. just unmute your mic and ask. All right, just a quick fill in, outline, and then fill in. And then we're going to wipe, rinse, and wipe our brush. Artists, I hardly used any paint at all for that part. All right, so wipe, rinse, and wipe your brush really well. Artists, we're gonna go back to add second coats on our green. They won't be 100% dry. It should be pretty close though. So because we're painting over top of wet paint, you will always want to make sure that you have more wet paint on your brush than you do on the canvas. So this isn't a dry brushing technique, like we are putting wet paint on our brush. So when you are ready, we're gonna grab some more, I'm gonna grab some more yellow and blue. Actually, I need to move my space around a little bit. And I'm gonna grab some of that yellow. Ooh, that was a lot. And grab some of that blue. Probably should have cleaned my brush. Actually, I did pretty good. There's hardly any yellow in there. So artists, because these colors, the paints that you got from Smudge are in their own pods, you can actually save them and use them again if you have any leftover paint. So again, I'm just taking yellow and blue. I'm gonna start with my lightest yellow, or my lightest green. So I'm gonna add more yellow to it than blue. And I'm going to do my leaves first for their second coat, and then my stem for the second coat. Now, this green might turn out different than it did before. That's totally fine. However, you do want to make sure that you have green paint on your brush. It's okay if it's not totally mixed in. See how mine's kind of all different colors there? That's okay. So again, we're going to outline first, always making sure that you have wet paint on your brush. And then we're going to fill in. So outline first, and then fill in. How's everyone doing? Good? So again, outline first. So again, we're going over to this leaf over here. Now, if your leaves are still really wet, wait. But if they're just a little bit, like a tiny bit tacky, you can paint over top of them. You just need to have more wet paint on your brush than you do on your canvas. You could move to your smaller brush too. You need to use whatever is comfortable for you. And just see how that second coat just makes such a difference. Your brush at this point should always glide gently, like it should never stick or feel scratchy, because it means that it's going to take off paint if it is. Okay. All right, so there's my second coat on my leaves. So I'm going to wipe, actually I don't even need to, sorry. I'm just going on to a darker green. So if your brush is getting thick or fat or buildup of paint in the bristles, just scrape that out or wipe that out. But I'm just gonna make a darker green here to move back to my stems, and that's by simply adding more blue. So again, artists, just gently add a second coat to your leaves. And again, I'm just using my big brush. And now I'm going to add a second coat to my stems. So again, just be very careful. You don't really want to go over top of your petals too much. And for this one, just take your big brush and turn it on its side, or use your smaller brush. Now your brush or your paint here should never really be goopy right now, just because we do want it to dry. Just enjoy that feeling of letting the paint glide. How lovely, eh? All right, So I have my lighter green leaves, my darker stems. I'm done with my green now, so I'm going to wipe, rinse, and wipe my brush off. So get all that gunk out as best as you can. It's not going to be 100% clean, right? But you want to get that wet stuff out. Rinse your brush in the jar. Gently rub those bristles on the bottom or on the side, or if you've got a paint puck, awesome. Our next step is going to be to add a second coat onto our backs of our flower petals. However, I am going to wait on this one. So this middle one, we're not going to do right now. However, I'm going to do a second coat on all of these ones that touch our background. So again, all I did was I'm going to use my small brush for this. I just don't want to jam a bigger brush in. Actually, maybe I'll just wait for a second. Let you guys finish up your stems and your leaves. And then when you're ready, we're just going to go on to the second coat of the backs of our tulips. So artists, just so you know, we're not going to do second coats on the front parts. However, we are going to paint in order so that the petals do overlap, but we're not doing second coats. So when we do paint our petals, you're going to put a lot of paint on your brush. All right, so when you're ready, you're going to grab your big brush or even a smaller brush. And we are just going to fill in our second coat on the inside or the back petals, and I'm not going to do this middle one just yet. All right, just very gently covering that up. Don't worry if you go over top of your lines a bit, because we're just going to cover that up anyway, okay? So there's our second coat on those petals. This middle one I'm just going to leave for right now. So when you're done that, wipe, rinse, and wipe your brush, and we're going to use our big brush pretty much for the rest of the time. So again, artists, just a second coat on the back of your petals. That's it. So these middle petals there. This one in the very center, I'm just going to leave it for now. And wipe, rinse, and wipe your brush, because you never want paint to dry on the bristles. So I am going to double dip. So I'm going to take my big brush, and I'm actually going to dip a lot into my red, okay, a lot. I'm going to take my other corner and dip a little bit into my white, okay? So if you look, that's about, what, 3/4 of 1/4? Oh, just so you know, I have another kitten who just woke up. She looks like she's wanting to get in trouble too, so who knows. All right, artists, we're gonna start with this top flower up here. So using my brush, and you always, this is kind of like cutting in a wall, whatever you do an edge. So you can use the white on the corner or the red on the corner. I'm going to use the red on the outside. And you are going to just pull up. I'm going to turn my brush so that that white kind of shows up a little bit better. So starting at the bottom, I took my double dipped brush and I'm just pulling up. I like that streakiness, that's the whole point of this painting. Okay, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, except I'm going to, I'm going to flip my brush so that my red is on the other side. So again, I've got red and white, and I'm actually going to go right over top of this petal just for easiness sake. So pulling up, and I'm just going to turn here so I can get a little bit of a curve. Okay. And you can blend that in a little bit more if you want to. However, our next step is going to be to do the center anyway. So as you can probably imagine, I'm going to do red on this side as we take our strokes up this way, and red on the right side. So the trick here is to always have the color of your petal on the outside. Honestly, artists, don't think about it too much. I mean, in the end, it's going to look gorgeous anyway. So when you're ready, you're going to, again, double dip. We're going to get red and white or whatever color your petal is. Now, can you see why we didn't do our second coat here? Because we're really kind of painting right over top of it. Now, when you get to the top here, sorry, you do want to curve your brush right up to the top, okay? You could put your white on the outside if you wanted to. That's entirely up to you. Okay. And I'm just going to work from each side in, just so I have it sort of even. And artists, you can go, that was right, right? Oh, that was wrong. Oh well, don't think about it. You can take these right up, okay, right up to the tip. So don't be stingy on the paint here. And as you get to the center, you may even just start stroking. Okay? Pretty, eh? Oh, I love this. So pretty. Oh. Don't play with it too much, right? Right. All right. Just gonna darken this edge up a little bit. Okay. Then I am gonna wipe my brush out. I just have a buildup of paint here before I start again on the next flower. So I am going to go ahead, give that a little bit of time to dry. Let's go on to this flower, and then we'll do this flower, and then we'll do the middle one, okay? But you guys know the process now, right? So now you don't have to be as careful or cautious. So if you want, you can get a little messy with this one. So with this one, I'm just going to very carefully land my petal right at the leaf. And honestly, artists, you can get messy with this one, right? So if you want, just get streaky. Don't even think about it. Ah, Paige, what are you doing? There we go. I need to get my rhythm back. I think in Taylor's original one, I think she got really kind of crazy. So if you want to go ahead and do that. I don't think we've done this painting since we did the Parkinson's fundraiser many years ago. All right. Let's put some plain white streaks going on. So artists, just have fun with your paint. Don't think about it too much. But if you want that streaky, just don't blend it in a ton, okay? It's funny, my watch is telling me that I need to stand, and I've been standing for like almost an hour-ish. Get that one a little bit more streaky too. Ooh, I like that. So artists, just have fun with your paint. Don't think about it too much. Sorry, I'm just adding more streaks. That's all I'm doing. Just got streaky, so artists, go back and play if you want to. Don't think about it too much. just get a little messy. I am going to rinse my brush now. I can feel my paint drying on my bristles. So you never, ever, ever want that to happen. It is like, I don't even know, cleaning tar out of feathers. It is nasty. So you will want to rinse your brush really well. So if your paint starts to dry on your bristles, rinse your brush really, really well and get that paint all out. All right, artists, so petal number 1, petal number 2, flower number 3, I should say, and then we're going to do the main one last. So again, artists, don't even think about it, okay? So I just want you to take your paint and starting at the bottom, following the contour of your flower. Again, remember, we painted over top of that flower, right? So just enjoy laying down your paint. Don't even worry. So pretty. Just enjoy getting messy, artists. See? Nice and streaky. So pretty. Sorry, I'm just going back and touching up what I think I need to have more streaks in. So artists, before we go on to do this flower, I do want to do my second coat of red in the back petal here. So I'm going to take my smaller brush, just because I want to. You can use your big brush for this as well. And I'm just going to give that back middle petal a second coat. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to touch up a little bit while I can, right? So I've got some, so you always want to make sure your flower is cohesive, meaning that there's not any big glaring canvas spots, right? All right, sorry, getting off track here. So I'm filling in the middle petal here. And if you want, while you have that red or whatever color, you can go back and do some touch-ups if you want to. So artists, again, I'm using my big brush. I'm filling in a big area. I'm going to start with my outside petals, and then I'm going to do my inside petal. So again, I'm going to get streaky, so I'm going to double dip. So I have a lot of red on one side, a little bit of white on another side. And I'm just going to start at the bottom, turn my brush kind of on its side so I can get a thin line. Woo. Take a little bit of a breath and hold your breath. And you want the brush to do the work for you, so do have it curve a little bit. Okay, so again, from the bottom, pulling up. From the bottom, pulling up and curving along with it. So if it didn't get streaky enough for you, you can go back and add some streaks. You can always do that after too if you're like me, I want to give some time for this to dry. Whatever you do, try to follow the contour or the curve of your petal. See, that didn't take long at all. Okay, so again, my red is on my outside just because that's kind of my border color. I'm going to turn my brush a little bit on its side, pull up, have the brush do the work for you. That's why you use the brushes, and have it be the outline. Okay, so double dipping, a lot of red, a little bit of white, turn my brush on its side, and just fill in. That curve that gives your flower shape. So make sure that you're always curving your brush. If you want more streakies, go back and add some streaks. But this flower is messy, right? Like, don't get too caught up in it being perfect. All right, so last petal. So again, I'm going to outline my bottom here. And then I'm going to bring my brush up and turn it so that it ends right up at the top. So again, I'll show you. You're going to take your brush, get that paint or the brush to do the outline for you, and then end up right at the top. Okay. Oh, wrong way. And artists, don't get too caught up on direction. It's not a big deal. I'm literally just flipping my brush, but you do want to take that brush stroke from the bottom all the way up your canvas because your petal color doesn't start in the middle. Does that make sense? So you are probably painting over top of a spot that you've already painted over. Notice how I'm dipping for almost every stroke that I do. I mean, this is a large part of the canvas. Beautiful. I love this painting. So artists, go back and add some more streakies if you want, or if you need something to define it a little bit more, like if you need a thicker line or a darker line, you can do that. Just remembering that if you paint over top of wet paint, you always need to have more paint on your bristles than is, more wet paint on your bristles than is on your canvas. Okay. So artists, for the next couple minutes here, I will let you, well not let you, I'll have you finish up your masterpiece. And go back and do touch-ups like I'm doing right now. Me not loving that one so much. There we go. That's why, because my lines are not right. Okay. It's the action of having those curved strokes that give your flower shape. So if you have a straight line, you may want to curve it a little bit. Okay, just paint right over top of it. So obviously this flower, the first one that we did, will be almost dry, right? The last flower will still be super wet, so any second coats or strokes that you want to add, just be mindful of that. Artists, another thing you can do is you can take your flower around the side of your canvas. Just be very careful when you do your brush stroke that you don't mess up this beautiful flower that you just created. So pretty. Now I will tell you a little trick. White is actually a really good cover-up. So if you've got some of your petals showing down here, just be careful because you don't want to scrape your paint off like I just did. But just add some white over top of it. Maybe I should wait on that one. Wow, like I have a ton of paint left. How about you guys? That was a lot of paint. So I have a ton of paint left, so I can easily use this for another masterpiece. But what I would love for you guys to do is just kind of take a step back, take a look at your piece, see if there's any touch-ups that you would like to do. What I will say is, as soon as you love it, stop. Because it'll be inevitable that you will do something that totally wrecks your masterpiece and then you'll be really upset. So once you love your tulips, just stop, wipe, rinse, and wipe your brush. Clean it really well, and then what you're actually going to do is you are going to wash it in warm soapy water. Reshape, get that water out of your bristles. Again, water is not a friend to brushes. Like, you should never leave your brushes sitting in water overnight or for an extended period of time. It dries out the bristles, just like your own hair, right? If you wash it too much, or if you sat with it in a bathtub for a really long time, it would start to actually dry out your hair. So same with the brushes, you're going to rinse them really well in soapy water. you are then going to get that water out and reshape your bristles and lay them flat to dry. So don't do them down, don't do them up, because any water left will soak into your, oh my gosh, handle. That's what it's called. And then you're gonna lay it flat to dry. Any leftover paint on your palette, you can either scoop and reuse if you can, or you can just throw it out. If there are any paint left in your pods, like this white, I'm just gonna clean it out. Like literally, I used to do this at Smudge all the time, not with your guys' stuff, but with my stuff. And you can just scoop out your paint and clean it if you want to, and then that way you can use it again for something else. So you can pop the lids on and save those for another time, but any leftover paint you can just throw out. So before I go, I just want to thank you so much for spending your Saturday with Smudge. I love painting with you guys. I miss seeing you in person. Hopefully that day will come again soon, but until then, keep safe, keep healthy, keep happy, and we will see you again maybe next weekend. Oh, I have to tell you, we're doing our Coastal Sunset Masterpiece on a Saturday evening. So if you need a date night or something with those of you who have been cooped up in your house, sorry, too much talking. It's on a Saturday evening. It's on May 30th. So if you are looking for a Saturday evening event, that's a really good one to join us for. You can find it on our website at smudgeart.ca.